Welcome and thank you to all our viewers from all across the world joining us for the third episode of the 10 limited series of Let's Talk Live with Sandy, where we bring awareness and give a voice to survivors of domestic violence, as well as women and men who are looking for ways to becoming empowered in their lives. As you know, I am a certified life and health coach, and I do coach my clients on becoming empowered after abuse, trauma, illness, or health setbacks in 90 days by letting go of old beliefs, setting ideal futures, road mapping to success in life and health, saying yes to self, taking empowered actions, setting boundaries and accountabilities. I'm also the author of The Unwanted Wife, a #1 bestseller in several categories on Amazon, such as dysfunctional relationship, divorce, family relationships, psychology and counseling, family relationships, and self-esteem and self-help, to just name a few. So the prequel of The Unwanted Wife, The Ungracious Daughter, is set to be released in the late November. And so today on Let's Talk Live with Sandy, we will be discussing a survivor's breast cancer journey with my very good friend and cancer survivor, Harripersad. Yay! I met Mala through our love for music and culture, and we clicked immediately. Through fellow Guyanese, loving music, loving culture, loving religion. So Mala is a Guyanese Canadian singer, talk show host, MC, and cancer survivor. Mala was born in Lenora, West Coast, Demerara, and she migrated to Canada at the age of 15 and brought her love of Indian music with her. With humble beginnings, she has definitely made a name for herself, representing Guyana and Canada in 2018 in singing competitions in Trinidad and Tobago, performances in mega concerts like Chutney in the Park, Chutney Wine, Chutney Fest, and Save Abbey Fundraiser. She toured Aruba twice with 𝘵𝗶𝘁𝗵 and performed with many other international artists. She has won third place in the Chutney Fest competition in 2019 here in Canada. And Mala lent her voice to various fundraiser events all over the GTA. She's the host of the popular Sunday afternoon live show, which aired during the pandemic between 2020 and 2021, and came to a full stop in July of 2021 because of her diagnosis with breast cancer. You can subscribe to her YouTube channel to listen to her music and shows and live events. She has more new music coming this year, so watch out. And well, wow, Mala, what a full resume. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much,
Mala, who's the guest of our third episode. Let's talk. Before we delve into discussion, please share anything that I might have left out about you.
I think you pretty much have it covered. I am releasing 2 songs very soon. It's the production's already done. I was hoping to have the videos done as well, but we have a few setbacks, so we may have to release audio first and then video after. But other than that, like, I am so grateful for life, and I'm grateful to be here, to be sitting here, and for this new lease on life, so to speak.
Well, you are a brave and courageous woman, and I always, like with all that you've been through and all that you survived and all that, like, I mean, I was following you during your journey, and keeping up with all your messages that you were posting on Facebook, and sometimes you wouldn't post anything at all, and then I would get so worried, and then you come back on happy as ever again,
Yeah, exactly.
So
the times, so it was just really crazy time the last couple of years with COVID. 2019, I was like a busybody. Every weekend I had something going on. I had the live shows, and I was doing the live music as well too. And then during the pandemic, everything was just like I was doing everything from the basement. And then, I was planning my birthday party, and then boom, I just went for my regular annual mammogram in May of last year. And, you know, I got the results that, you know, you're positive for DCIS, which is stage 0 breast cancer.
I never heard of stage 0.
Yes, so I never either. I didn't even know what the hell DCIS is. And so DCIS is, well, what is it again? I think I have it here. Can't even remember the name of it. But anyways, when I think of it, I'll let you know. But so it's the earliest stage of breast cancer, whereas the cancer cells, the calcification is inside. The calcification will show on a mammogram, but it's inside the milk duct and it hasn't left the milk duct as yet. So when it leaves the milk duct, then it becomes stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, or stage 4, depending on how long it takes, right?
Right.
So when I did my mammogram, the first set of mammograms showed calcifications, 2 sets of calcifications on a different parts of the breast. And so they asked me to come back again for a second set of tests, which I did. And then, of course, at that time, they said, okay, yes, this is DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ. That's what it is.
That's what it, okay.
Just remember that name just came to me.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that was. I mean, Google was my friend back then, and I was just like Googling every single thing I knew about it.
Oh my God,
And,
did you go like, well, that would be my first question. What did you do to help you meet the challenges of your treatments? And for even finding out that you're positive?
well, I mean, it was when I got the news, it was total disbelief. It was shock. It was anger. It was a whole bunch of emotions, you know. But it took me a couple of months, at least 3 months, to even deal with it, like to let it sink in that this is happening, whether I like it or not. This is happening, right? So, I mean, thank God I did not have to go through chemo or radiation, which I was kind of worried about that, because I thought with any type of breast cancer surgery, you're supposed to go through either chemo or radiation to make sure that they got everything out. But what was explained to me was that in Canada, for stage 0, they do not do radiation or chemotherapy, but in the United States they do, right? So yes, and I only found this out lately from the couple of groups that I joined, the cancer groups.
Right.
So I you know, with total disbelief of what was happening, I planned a birthday party for myself last year. I went through all of that, and then I broke the news to my family, and you know, it was just a bunch of emotions. You know, you're going through all this emotional upheaval, like
so wait, you had a party and you didn't tell anyone?
Nope, I had a full house.
Oh
if you remember from some of my videos.
Yeah, and so oh my God, you're brave. I would have been broken.
I was, when I got the news first from my doctor, and I broke down in my car. I think I said that in one of my videos on my YouTube channel. I just drove around for a while, for a couple of hours, just trying to let it all sink in, cried, bawled, whatever. And then came home, wiped my tears, came home, washed my face, and just went about my business as if nothing happened.
I know. Like I do that a lot. Like when I was going through my abuse, I used to drive around and cry myself to zero tears and then come home. So I know how it is.
So
but
one of the reasons why I chose to do that was because one of my mom's sister was battling stage 4 in Florida at the time when I got diagnosed. So it was like a double whammy for her, and I didn't want to put her through that. But then when it came close to, you know, I said, you know, I've got to tell them, because I mean, you have to let your family know one, you have to let your friends know, your close friends, because I'm telling you, you need the support.
Yeah.
Support of your family and friends are the best thing that you can have when you're going through something like this, because I went through several stages of depression, emotional depression, like my emotional and mental well-being was right down to the ground. There were times when I just wanted to die. I'm like, okay, I'm giving up now, that's it.
I could imagine. Well, what did the other people close to you do for you that made a difference?
Well, I think the best thing was for my family was there. Like I said, family support is really, really important for one thing. My mom was there for me. My brother-in-law was driving me around to all my appointments. My sister and my brothers were there taking me to the ER. I ended up in the ER 6 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a lot of complications because, first of all, I didn't have, when my surgery took place on August 11th, it's been 1 year already.
Yeah.
So this show came at the right time, actually.
I know, I remembered
Yeah.
it was about a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so August 11th, I had my surgery, and then 4 days later, I started having all these complications, and I was in extreme pain. And what they forgot to do was put in a drain to take out all of the excess fluid. So there was no way for the fluid to go. There was nothing. My doctors.
I remember this. Yes.
Yeah. My doctors, they made a mess, and they refused to take the responsibility, and they were laying blame on each other. There were 2 of them, and they were laying blame on each other. And even when I went to the ER, the ER nurses would call them to come down to see, because they're my doctors.
Yeah.
They refused to come because one was saying, well, it's not my fault. It's her fault. She is the one who operated on you last. So she should come and take care of you. And so it's vice versa. And it was like that all the time.
I'm not
6 times,
name the hospital.
6 times I went to the ER, and all 6 times, neither one of my surgeons came to see me.
My God.
Yes, I was given painkillers. They changed, my stitches were breaking loose. Things were falling apart. There were so many things happening. I actually wrote a timeline from day 1 to January of this year. And I was reading it today, and I was in tears because I remember all the pain and the suffering I went through.
You went through, yeah. So you didn't have to have treatments after that, did you?
Yes, so after they did the mastectomy, I ended up with the infection. Seroma was building up. Mm-hmm. And then I had 2 really nasty bacteria growing. Ooh. Since August 31st. And I did not get any treatment, no antibiotics, nothing, until November 18th. So November 18th, I remember going in to emerge. My mom, things were happening here. Everything was falling apart. My stitches were breaking loose. Fluids were leaking. My night clothes were being soaked with blood. Oh, it was just horrible. And so I had home care coming in from day 1. Home care was with me from August right up to January. And they were coming in every single day just to change my dressing and whatever. And they were appalled that my surgeons were giving me this much of a hassle, and then having to go to ER 6 times. So I tried to do my own research. I tried to get a second opinion. And in order to have a second opinion, my surgeon is supposed to write that recommendation for the Princess Margaret Hospital. And I tried to get them to do that. It took them several months to get that letter, until one day my mom, I couldn't walk. I still couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair, So my mom took me to the hospital for one of my appointments, my follow-up appointments. And then I said, you know what, Mom, let's go and see if I can get this letter. So I went there and I asked them, because they kept telling me that, oh, they sent the letter to Princess Margaret Hospital. I'm not sure why, but I was in contact with Princess Margaret and they were saying that they never received anything, right? So that was a whole fiasco. And then finally, I fired one of my surgeon. I said, I do not want you on my case anymore. I don't want you to touch me. I don't want to talk to you anymore, because she was like, when my stitches were breaking loose and I was in such pain, she said to me, I had her on speaker one day and I was talking to her and she said to me, oh, you didn't by any chance poke yourself, did you? Yes. So my mom was appalled. I was crying. I was like, are you for real? Like, I was in such an emotional state of mind right then and there. It was just horrible. It was a horrible experience, totally horrible experience. I wouldn't want anybody else to go through that. That is why I'm saying all these things, and I want to share it, so that the most important thing in a cancer diagnosis is to get a second opinion. And if I was to get this again, I would go for a second opinion. I will not just listen to one doctor or two doctors.
Well, before we go on, I actually want to mention that my last mammogram, I went to one place and they told me that they saw something on my left breast. And they couldn't tell me what it was. But the way the mammogram was very uncomfortable, first of all, and I think the girl didn't know what she was doing. So I wasn't comfortable with them saying that they saw something. So then I said to my doctor, I need to do this again, but I'm not going to the same place. She said, well, you have to go to the same place so they can run back the same test again. Yeah. I said, no, I want to go somewhere else. So I made my own appointment and I went into the one that I actually used to go to before, because ever since I think I've been doing mammograms for the last, I would say, about 15 years, because we had it in our family. And so I went to the second place and they couldn't find anything. They didn't see anything. So then I went back to the place before. So I did this like mammograms every week. All right.
Yeah.
And they're still seeing something. I said, maybe you guys need to clean your machine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? Because
yeah, you don't take it for granted. Yeah, just get a second opinion, because
so in 6 months I am going back again just to make sure and see how it goes. But yeah, so I'm sorry, I just had to say that so that people know that do get it, from different places.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you, what did friends and family do that meant the most to you?
I think just being here and just offering support. There was one person by my side who called me every single day, my good friend 𝘴𝘶𝗵. So I have to constantly thank her, because
I know Shanta.
She would call me every single day. She'll say to me, if you have to cry, you have to scream, and I couldn't at the time because I was in such pain. And it wasn't pain from the surgical side, it was pain from the infection that was brewing, and this hospital and my doctors didn't know what it was and didn't even try to do anything about it. Instead, they were pumping me full of oxy, and that was making me like a zombie. I couldn't walk. My limbs were like, I was just like totally helpless. And I kept fighting with them. Like, I would still call them up. I call my doctor all hours in the night, leave messages, and bombard them with questions. Like, what are you guys doing to help me? I can't be on these pills. This oxy is just making me weaker and weaker and weaker. And it wasn't even helping the pain. It would help for like maybe, they said I'm supposed to take the oxy every 4 hours. Well, I started off with every 4 hours, and then I ended up taking it every hour because the pain was just intense. It was coming, you know, like when you have labor pains.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was like that. And I couldn't move, I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk. Like just to breathe was a problem. And then finally in September, November, I went to see an infectious disease specialist. I ended up in the ER on November the 18th. My incision was leaking and it was stinking like a rotten egg. Yes, and my mom was like puking because she couldn't handle the smell. And I'm thinking, what is smelling so bad in my room? And then when we started looking at the dressing, green stuff was coming out of it.
Oh my God.
Yes. So I had this infection since August 31st because my infectious disease specialist told me that out of the 6 times I was in the ER, 5 of those times, when they took the swab and tested it, it tested positive for the bacteria.
And nobody did anything about it.
And nobody did anything and didn't give me any antibiotics, nothing.
That makes me so angry.
Very, right? So anyways,
so
yeah, and then so once she put me on a PICC line, she started treating me immediately. And then I was on 2 different antibiotics, really strong ones, for about 6 months. And then after that, I was fine. So it started to help bit by bit. I was able to like get up and move around and walk a little bit. I could start feeling everything was easing up. But I mean, it's still not quite healed as yet. It's still healing in the process right now. I'm just not on any medication right now. But I have my second set of testing coming up in November 21st.
We'll keep our fingers crossed and say our prayers for you.
But I'll have to tell you, 𝘴𝘶, March of this year, the doctors always say you must do your own self-exams, right? So I did my own self-exam and on the left side, and I found a tiny little lump. Well, I didn't wait. I called my doctor and I said, we have to get this tested right away. I don't care. He's like, oh, you just come in and we'll do whatever. I said, no, I'm not waiting. So I said, you get me. I went in, he tested it and everything. He found the lump itself. And then he said, okay, fine, I'm going to send you to the hospital. Just go and get the mammogram done and they will do the biopsy right away, which they did. And they found something called an atypical cell growing.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor was saying, my new doctor was saying, breast doctor was saying that, she could do a lumpectomy and take it out right away, or because it's slow growing, or we could wait. And then I thought about going through another surgery again so quickly after just recovering.
Yeah.
And then I said to her, can we leave this till November? Let's do it in November, because my mom has been through so much with her sister dying, and then they have a wedding coming up at the end of August, and I just didn't want to put her through that again. It was just too much. So I said to her, let me just enjoy the summer, and then we deal with it in November. So I don't know what's coming down the pipeline come November.
You'll be fine. I know that.
Yeah.
So we talk about fears, right? Like, how did you overcome your fears of the treatment? So 1, the treatment, 2, the side effects, and the 3rd is possible dying. Like, how did you overcome those fears?
And that's a hard one. There was a time when I did give up, and it was my mom who talked me out of it, because when I was going to the ER so many times and I was in excruciating pain and I was screaming in the ER with pain, and my mom, like at one point when I got really dejected at one point at that time when the ER doctors were trying to call my own surgeons to see what the problem was, if they knew what was wrong. And neither one of them wanted to come. And that's when I was like, so who do I turn to now?
Yeah.
Right? So who do I turn to now? And then at that point, you know, I was just like, she saw how I was looking, and she's like, you know, she said to me, don't give up. You cannot give up. Not now. You can't. So.
Yeah. Well, see, at least you had that support.
Yeah.
You know,
that's why I say that it's important to have your family around you, because everybody, like, you have to have the people around you do all of that for you, and somebody to be there, to be strong, to be saying all these positive things to you at a time like that, because it's so important to not fall apart. And I was falling apart. I really was. I was like rock bottom at that time.
Well, I know where you got your courage and bravery from your mom. That's strong. Yeah. She's got to be very strong, like, to deal with a child, like, you know, could you imagine? I can't imagine.
Exactly.
So did you join any support group? And
I did, actually. I joined this group called Conquering Cancer. And then I joined another group called, what is it? I have it written down here. Give me 1 second, I'll find it. Someone else was asking me about this. I have one of my Facebook friends. Oh, it's called Wellspring.ca. It's a cancer foundation right here in Toronto. A friend of my sister actually put me onto that. They have a lot of classes where, you know, breathing classes, exercise classes, to help you to maintain that calm, positive outlook. And a lot of like little classes here and there, a lot of like lectures and stuff to help to put your mind in a better place. Conquering Cancer is a Facebook group where everybody who logs on, you log your story in there, and then everyone who's on there is a cancer patient. And some people stories are far worse than what I've been through, and just reading their story and reading how they have fought and come back from stage 4 cancer just gave me hope that, you know, I'm not alone in this. And that's the important thing, like, to know that you're not alone. There are people out there who can help, and there are other people who are going through far worse than you, and you can learn from them. You can take everyone on there shares their stories about what they've done, how they've changed their diets, or, you know, what type of teas they're taking, or some natural remedies then that's out there, rather than going through chemo or radiation.
Yeah. On the other hand, I know people, actually somebody very close to me, some people, when they find out that they're like they're positive for cancer, or they're like, they have cancer, they shut everything else out. They shut everyone out. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk to their families. And they just kind of like everybody's different, and everybody deals with things differently. What would you say to somebody like that, who just shuts out everything and deals with it on their own?
I think they're setting themselves up for a lot of mental illness. Me, I was a very outgoing person, and I don't like to share a lot of things about my own personal life. Like, I don't mind going out there, interviewing other people and doing things out there, being social and whatever. But when it comes to my personal life, I don't share a lot of it. So, and I don't like to be a burden to anyone. I'm independent that way. I like to do things for myself. So for me, being in that position, I can only speak for myself. Being in that position where you're lying in that bed, and right after surgery, you need everybody by your side. There is no way you can move to do anything for yourself, right? So for people like that, I would say, you know, if you have family, you have friends, reach out, open up to them. Cancer, it's so common these days, and it shouldn't be taboo. And it is taboo, because for me, when I was, you know, like I said, Google was my friend. I was Googling every single thing on the topic. And then I was also looking for other women's stories. Like I was looking for West Indian women who shared their story, and I couldn't find one. I couldn't find one. Because, you know, you can Google everything you want to, but if you're, say, for instance, I see you post something now about abuse, for instance, I'm thinking, okay, well, she's strong and she can do that. And if I'm going through that same thing, maybe I can open up. It gives me strength hearing your story. And likewise, I was thinking if I heard somebody else's story, I can gain strength from it and, you know, be more positive about the whole thing. But I didn't see anybody doing it. And it took me a while before, you know, I was toying around with the idea of going public with it. And then I was just sitting by myself. I didn't ask anybody's opinion. I decided for myself that I am going to go public with it, regardless of any backlash or anything like that, because I was always, you know, I'm always in the public figure, in the public eye, and I'm thinking, will people see me differently? Will they stop signing me up for gigs and stuff like that? You know, I started thinking along those lines, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, that's not important right now. The most important thing is to share this information so that other women out there can learn from it, you know.
And you're right, like in our West Indian community, these things are so taboo. And even me, I actually did the same thing like you. I Googled West Indian women who were abused or who were sexually abused as a child, or who was, you know, abused in their marriages. People will, I found some things about people being abused in their marriages.
Yes.
But nobody wanted to talk about their childhood sexual experience.
Exactly.
Nobody wanted to talk about that abuse. Nobody. And people would reach out to me and say, oh, this had happened to me. This happened to me when I was a child. But they don't want to talk about it. They don't even want to be coached about it.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to offer free coaching on this, and they don't want to talk about it.
Exactly.
It's just closed up. And you're right, like in our society, we don't share it. So you can't find help, or you can't find people who would share their story so that you can learn from it, right? Or because so I decided I'm going to be the first one. If I can't find anybody to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. And
well, that's exactly what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like you,
I just wanted to share it out there, and then whatever comes my way, I'll deal with it, you know?
Yeah. And just like you, I was so worried about my reputation. I was still worried about what my family's going to think. But I also, at the time that I started talking about it, I was a director at the temple. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to kick me out. They're going to kick me out of here. And I'm not going to be a director anymore, because they wouldn't want people hearing that, you know, I'm talking about these things like abuse in our community and rape and all these things in our community. They wouldn't want me to talk about it. But no, nobody said anything to me. I eventually did resign from the board because I had other things on the go. But yeah, nobody wants to talk about it. So now that you are a survivor, what would you do differently when you're going through the diagnosis and the treatments? Like looking back, like you said, you read your notes today, right? Looking back, what would you have done differently?
I would have gotten a second opinion. I would have spoken up to a few other people and get a few different opinions before opting for surgery. I think I would have done that. Maybe I jumped too quickly in trusting my doctors, and I figured, okay, they're doctors and they're oncologists and they deal with this stuff on a daily basis, so they know what they're doing. But little did I know that, you know, they get thousands of dollars for doing a surgery. Yeah. So they're quick to just say, okay, let's cut you open.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if they had suggested I get like maybe a couple doses of chemo or you know, radiation to try and see if they could get rid of those calcifications, maybe I didn't have to go through a full mastectomy, and I wouldn't have had to go through a whole year of pain and suffering.
Well, see, that was going to be my other question, was helping me to understand if you had other options.
At the time, no, none was offered to me because I
Or
asked.
you didn't know that you had.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know that I had any other options because it was only after the fact, like, just recently I started, discovering that there were so many different options. Like I could have gone through, and especially in Conquering Cancer, the group, I asked a question, was there any other option for me other than surgery? And quite a few people said that, they saw calcifications on their breast through mammogram, and they decided not to take the surgery. They just went about their lives, changed up their diets a little bit, and did different things, and they're still alive and kicking, and they're well, and they haven't been diagnosed with anything else.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that when I found out that how much money the hospitals make per surgery, it's incredible because it's a money-making scheme. Cutting you open is a money-making scheme. They don't care to sit you down and tell you that you've got options.
And I find that you're right, like it is money-making, and especially in the States as well, because it's a lot more dominant in the States.
Exactly. And then someone actually said to me that they had the same surgery as me, and then at the end of it, they were given at least 2 or 3 doses of not chemo, but radiation to make sure that they got rid of everything. So that was in the States, and in Canada, they don't do that.
Yeah.
So, which makes me wonder how many people have actually gone through the surgery and then ended up with having, like, stage 1 or stage 2 or lung cancer or whatever, because sometimes
yeah.
And then at one point they made a mistake with one of my tests, and they said that the cancer had metastasized to my lungs. And when my family doctor got the results, and I was just like screaming at him. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you telling me that I'm gonna die now? And this was like after I think it was just like around November of last year. And then I called my surgeon and I said, here is a report from one of your pathologists saying that the cancer has metastasized to my lungs. What are you talking about? Then she said to me, she's like, she took like maybe 2 days to get back to me. And when she finally got back to me, her answer was, oh, we made a mistake.
Wow.
You're gonna send a pathology report to my family doctor saying that my cancer has metastasized, meaning it's gone into my lungs. Now you're telling me it's a mistake. Like, so all of these, the emotional impact of that alone is enough to kill someone or send somebody, into a frenzy.
Well, like take for example, my daughter, about 6 years ago, about 6 years ago, right before she got married, she was diagnosed with lupus. And so they started giving her lupus medication and steroids and all that. A year later, after she got married and she had gained all this weight from the steroids and everything, she went to another doctor because she still wasn't feeling like, even with the medication and everything, she never had lupus. She never had lupus, and all this medication now has messed up her system so bad. And they still don't know, what exactly it is.
Oh my God.
But it wasn't lupus. And she was on medication that now messes up everything, because steroids really messes you up, especially a woman, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So what words would you not want to hear from your friends or your family to say to you?
What words would I not want to hear?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't think, like, everybody around me, like I only had my close family around me, like my mom, my sister, my brothers, my daughter. She was calling, we were FaceTiming all the time because she couldn't get leave to come. It was a school year for her. And so The words were all positive, to be quite honest. Nobody said anything out of place. There were a lot of people who just wanted to come see me or would call me or message me. There were a few people who had some negative things to say when I shared my story as well too. So there wasn't much in terms of negative words. It was mostly positive words. Everyone was saying that you can beat this, you're strong, you're independent, you know, you can fight this, fight it with all your might, and you can get through this no matter what. At the time, I wasn't believing a word of it, believe me, because I was in so much pain. I was like, shut up, get out of my room.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. I would be like that. I'd be, stay away from me. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear anything from anybody.
Yeah,
Well,
but you know, in the end, though, it's all about, a good friend of mine said to me that, you know, you've always been a true believer in God and whatever, and you go to temple and you practice your religion and whatever. So now is the time to dig deep. But at first, for the first 6 months, I was fighting with God. I was fighting, and I was saying that, you know what? How could you? I've done so much seva for community, for people, for family, for friends. I've done so much good. Why are you putting me through this struggle at this stage in my life? You know? But I think the lesson here was for me to take stock of my life, put things into perspective, and just try to draw strength, inner strength, to see how much inner strength I have to deal with this.
Yeah. So what would you tell someone who was just, like, say yesterday, learned that they had cancer?
Get a second opinion.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'm gonna drink some water.
Yeah,
definitely get a second. Sure. What words would you want to hear from your friends and family? You know, if you have to go through this, hopefully you don't have to go through this again.
No, I would have to say to anybody else who wants, like, who's okay, to answer your first question, for anyone else who's just been diagnosed, first I would say stay calm. It's hard to do, but stay calm. Keep your emotions in check. I mean, if you have to cry it out, cry it out. Do everything you have to do, but then sit down and think rationally. Go and get a second opinion. Get a third opinion if you have to, and then you deal with it with your family. Don't try to deal with it alone, because it's emotional turmoil. It really is. Yeah.
Did you get like a panic attacks?
No, I didn't get panic attacks. But I was I would have to say that I was in a state, like, right after the diagnosis of osteomyelitis. That's what they call it now, the bone infection. From the 5 months of infection that I had, the bacteria that was building up. It caused osteomyelitis, which is infection of the bone, and then in my ribs as well too. So that's why I couldn't move. I couldn't, any little bit of movement was I was in so much pain, excruciating pain. Couldn't walk. I couldn't get off the bed. I couldn't go to the bathroom. Couldn't do any of those things for myself. I was totally helpless. And so I would have to say that, you know, you have to, it's so important. I just cannot stress enough how important it is to have that support system in place, because you definitely need it every step of the way. You definitely need it. And then when you get better, make sure you don't forget those people that are
exactly. You know, I'm so glad that you didn't get panic attacks, because they are the worst. Because I had them when I was diagnosed with celiac and with hypothyroidism. But I had it before I was diagnosed. I didn't know that it actually causes panic attacks. And so I thought I was getting panic attacks because of COVID, because I was scared of getting COVID. And I didn't know that I was getting panic attacks because of the hypothyroidism. And now I'm okay. I don't get panic attacks. But it was bad. I would go outside the house, sit down outside, because I felt like I was, and because COVID made us like I found out like I had this during COVID.
Yes.
And because of COVID, and I couldn't go out, like we couldn't go anywhere, couldn't see our families, we could, like I thought that's why I was being like getting panic attacks, and I would go and sit outside in the middle of the night, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, it's just how people do things. Yeah.
No panic attacks here, just total emotional and mental meltdown happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, total emotional and mental meltdown, complete meltdown, to a point where, you know, I was ready to give up. I was ready to give up, especially when I got the wrong diagnosis as well, saying that my cancer had metastasized to my lung.
I mean, that's madness. Well, I think some people are here. Let me see if anybody had any questions before we everybody's saying, you know, oh, somebody wanted to know what hospital it was.
𝘴𝘶𝘁𝗵 General Hospital. Don't go there.
Oh my God, I hate that hospital. I don't like that hospital.
Don't go there.
I feel like it's because that's where my grandmother died.
My father passed away in that hospital too.
Renuka says mothers are the best.
Definitely, mothers are the best.
Savi said you did it. You fight it, Mala.
Savi was one of those persons who would call me like at least 2-3 times a week.
I know.
Check on me, she'll text me, she'll say, how are you doing? Can I bring something over for you? Can I drop something off for you?
Oh,
you know,
thank you,
so
Savi.
she's there.
Yeah.
She's a very good friend. So
that's
I truly
you know, and that's the most important thing when you have good friends and family.
Yes.
And you are a good friend as well. So I know that because you're my good friend. So with that being said, I thank you so much for joining me tonight and for sharing your journey with us. Not a lot of people are brave enough to even talk about it. So I'm glad as a fellow West Indian and as a fellow Guyanese that we're out there talking about things that are taboo in our community. And as we continue to do so, stay strong. And, you know, if anybody needs any advice from Mala or from me, you can get in touch with both of us on Facebook. And I'll put Mala's information at the bottom of the chats later on. Thank you so much, Mala.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you for having me
before the summer ends.
Yes, we have to. Absolutely.
I'll touch base with you offline. I will.
Okay, take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.